Hello and welcome back to our final combined quarterback episode for the 2026 class. We've scrambled to get as many of these done in a week and a half or so as we could. Today we're going to be talking about Joey Aguilar. As a heads up on the rest of the quarterbacks, my goal is to get to Taylor Green and Cole Payton before the draft. After that, we will probably just see who gets drafted, and I might potentially come back with another episode or two on guys that do get drafted. Jon and I think are going to do like a kind of rankings summary plus reaction to landing spots episode after the draft. So look for that to come sometime soon as well, just to give kind of final thoughts on, we've given our evaluation on these guys, but landing spot is so important for their long-term success in the NFL. So we do want to hit that on the back end of the draft as well. So Jon, looking forward to our last one today. Thanks again for joining.
Yeah, thanks for letting me do all of these. These are fun to do. This one maybe less so than some of the others. I'll just kind of tip off my thoughts, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, this one probably won't be one of our more lengthy episodes today, but we are going to cover Joey Aguilar. Aguilar has been in college for forever. He is older than I am, which I think might be the only guy that I've watched so far that I can say that about.
I can't say that about anybody anymore in the
Yeah.
draft.
So this might be the last guy that's ever true for that I'm watching, at least for me. But a guy that has transferred multiple times. The big saga with him that unfolded in the offseason was he had success at App State, was a good player there, transferred up a level to UCLA. The Nico stuff pops up in the spring and goes crazy. So Nico Iamaleava transfers from Tennessee to UCLA over some NIL disputes with him in Tennessee. UCLA jumps in the picture there, gets involved, and brings Nico to UCLA. Well, now you've got a guy who has 1 year of eligibility left, who's looking to play somewhere, who no longer has a starting spot at the school he was expecting to play at. And on the other side, you have a school that now needs an emergency starting quarterback because they've lost their starter to the portal. So you basically have a swap that takes place. Aguilar moves to Tennessee and plays his last year under Josh Heupel. Like with other Tennessee, I feel like, honestly, this is true at Tennessee quarterbacks and wide receivers and maybe even in other positions. Watching the Tennessee offense is a miserable film experience. Yeah. It is, and it's not to like hate on the effectiveness of what they do. Like what they do works.
They up a lot of yards and points. So
yeah,
I don't blame them for doing it, but on this end, it's not fun.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because when you're trying to watch these guys, it's easier to get to a conclusion on a guy when you get to see them do a lot of different things in the same game, and Tennessee's wide receivers run like 4 routes, and Aguilar is not challenged to do a lot of the things that other quarterbacks in the draft are. There's some things that are a little more translatable to other players. Like there's a lot of screens, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that have a lot of screens. To me, the biggest thing that makes evaluating Tennessee quarterbacks more challenging is they can basically just like take the snap and like plant their feet in the pocket and get a throw off like 90% of the time. And you don't really have to see them go through the same type of like progression or show the same sort of patience in the pocket that you typically have to look for in guys. And that part I think does make evaluating the processing specifically a lot more difficult than with other quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, when they do have success, there is always the kind of question in the back of your mind, like, okay, I didn't really see you do very much on that play, so like were you aware of what was going on, or was it just okay, you were throwing to Chris Brazzell on this play no matter what, and you're throwing it, he catches it, he scores a touchdown, and it's just really hard to fully understand everything that's going on in the Tennessee offense, because it is designed so well, it schemes so well for them.
Yeah, and I remember like when Hendon Hooker was at Tennessee and was a guy that had a lot more success than Aguilar, to be fair. Like Hendon Hooker was a really good college player, but when he was at Tennessee, it was kind of like he's really good at the 3 or 4 throws that they ask their quarterbacks to consistently make. Like he was a guy I felt like that could throw like a line drive 15 yards down the field about as
Yeah.
well as anybody, but the other stuff was where you had more questions. And so far, he hasn't had much of an opportunity to play in the NFL, but like you wouldn't consider that a successful, NFL quarterback coming out of this program.
Yeah.
So I think that just sets the table for talking about Aguilar because he is a guy that, like, yes, he's been in college forever. He's super old. He at least does have like prototypical NFL size. Like he's 6'3", 230, which I don't
Yeah.
think I ever realized until seeing his
I didn't
measurables.
either.
Like I never would have guessed that for him.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't look up his measurables until after I'd watched him, and I was fully expecting him to be another like 6 foot 6'1".
Yeah.
Like, he is built well. Like he definitely has weight on his frame, but I wasn't expecting him to be big. And I was like, oh, he's like actually over 6'3". I thought
Yeah.
Tennessee might have been lying for a second, but he was like 6'3 and a quarter, 229. So, um, actually his size, I didn't really think that like with his good size, he had a good arm. I
Yeah.
I didn't think it translated at all to arm strength.
I completely agree. I think he has a fine arm, I would say, but for a guy with his size, I would expect more.
Yeah.
There's there are some like impressive throws in the intermediate area of the field, but I felt like his deep ball
Yeah.
was very reliant on like the moon ball as
Yes.
the main way to get the ball 50 yards down the field.
And underthrown a lot of times
Yeah.
because he just couldn't get it. He couldn't get enough on it.
And there are NFL guys that are, Russell Wilson's a guy that like that was his specialty, but
Yeah.
he puts those on the money, which is what makes it so impressive is like he's dropping that throw in a bucket 50 yards down the field where it's basically just like falling into the receiver's arms. That's not what you're seeing with Aguilar at all. And on top of that, you do have to consider like Brazel is an absolute burner at wide
Yeah.
receiver. And so his margin for error on some of these deep balls is significant where there's times where he can underthrow it by 5 yards and Brazel still got room to work with.
Yeah.
And that's just like, that's never going to happen in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, and I actually thought that Brazel did pretty well on some contested catches downfield,
Yeah.
which, you know, there is always the debate with Tennessee receivers too about like, how much of their game will really translate. But I did think that aside from like actually burning guys, he actually did make some contested catches, which definitely bailed out Aguilar quite a bit on some of those downfield plays. There was one against Georgia that like that ball never should have been completed. It was so far underthrown.
Yeah.
Brazel adjusts and then through contact makes the catch and the defender falls down and he scores. It looks easy, but it's a really difficult play, and it was all Brazel. It was not really a good throw at all.
Yeah. I really liked Cedric Tillman when he was in college because he was
Yeah.
one of their receivers that was so strong at the catch point. And I think Brazel does have some of that in him, which gives me a little more hope that, like, I do think he has a little more to his game than Jalen Hyatt did because he does have a lot more of that strength at the catch point. So, yeah, he's interesting. I enjoyed watching him on Tennessee's tape. I do think the Georgia game is a good one to call out because this is one where, like, the film tells a much different story than what you might remember from that game, which was like Tennessee goes up 21-7 in that game. It's a shootout. It goes to overtime.
He hit like his first 12 or 13 passes or something. It may have been more than that. They kept showing the stats when they were like going through all the early drives.
I didn't think he was good, to be honest with you.
I didn't either.
Like,
I like even watching those first few drives, it was like, man, you somehow have completed every single pass, but I thought all of them were bad.
And there are multiple like almost interceptions in that game.
Yeah.
Along with like the actual mistakes that are made. So yeah, he's a tough one because I do think like I still am kind of like every time I watch Tennessee's offense and like the quarterback that's playing for them, I'm just like, man, if they ever actually nail like a top quarterback talent and continue to have this wide receiver depth, like they are going to be so good because they like I think
they
that
consistently have a pretty good run game out of that system and a strong defense too. So like, I think you're right. I think they really have just missed a premier talent at quarterback, And like if they got that, they're definitely a playoff team making a deep playoff push.
Yeah. And that's at that point the question is, and this is what they ran into with Hooker, is like, can this system actually scale against better opponents? Because like when they've run into Georgia, except last year they actually had a really good game against Georgia, but in previous years when they'd run into Georgia every year, it's like, okay, now here's a little dose of reality when you're not faster and more athletic than the team you're playing against. Like, does this system still work? But it's interesting for sure because I think that Aguilar had a lot of fans. Like I think Tennessee fans loved him this year because he was replacing the trader basically, and it's like and full credit to him, right? Like he comes in spring, like late spring, has like very little time compared to most quarterbacks to pick up the system and learn the offense. I will say, how complicated is this system to learn? I don't really know, but like he was put in a really tough spot and delivered for Tennessee fans what they were hoping for. So I think people got really excited about him, but I felt this way during the year, and I think the tape confirmed just that, like, I don't actually know that he was playing that well. It was just, like, the offense was really good around him, and the narrative was strong for him, so, like, people were going to latch on to his performances.
Yeah, and I will say, like, in his credit, like, Nico was kind of a disaster for them. I didn't really, like, go back and watch in depth, but I remember watching him live, and Nico couldn't hit anything, and, like, Aguilar at least is accurate enough on some of these that he's giving guys chances. He's not just completely missing them. But Aguilar, so Aguilar played much better than Nico did in the system, which is why they were more successful with him than they were with Nico.
Yeah, which is crazy that like if they made the playoff with Nico and their offense like it's so crazy that the one year they had like an awesome defense and so much talent on the defensive line, like a guy that might be the first cornerback off the board, plus like multiple other really good defensive backs. Like they had all that, and that's like the one year where your 5-star just stinks. Like they could have been really good last year if Aguilar was their quarterback the year before. Yeah. This year, obviously,
giving like stabilizing presence. So, like I thought he at least brought that to them this year.
I agree. This to me is like a very good example of like he's good enough where your floor is solid with him, but he also wasn't going to raise your ceiling offensively. Getting back to like him specifically, I would say like I do think he has a fairly quick trigger. When he like identifies something, like he can get the ball out pretty quick. I think we've kind of talked about his other like positives for me. Is there anything else on the positive side you want to highlight?
I thought like some of his better throws were oddly when he was rolling left. Very weird. Like that you're not usually going to find that for a right-handed quarterback, but I thought that he had some really nice throws rolling left. Other than that, it was like there were some things that were fine, like his mobility and pocket movement, but not really special, not great.
Yeah, that's what you finished with there of like not really special. Like that's kind of what I come away with generally is just like I don't know what the NFL trait is here, other than like he's 6'3". And even that's not like we're not talking about a 6'6", guy that's like a physical specimen, right? Like he's got okay NFL size. Like I just don't know what the big trait is for him. I thought there were times where like I came away thinking that the processing was more predetermination than it was processing. That's something that like I think there's been plenty of discussions on like who falls into what bucket with guys like Tua or other NFL quarterbacks, but to me I didn't feel like he always had the answer when things weren't what he was expecting.
Yeah. And I thought those were the times where like when it wasn't there, he kind of panicked, and then he didn't have a fallback, and then pressure gets there, and pressure made him panic, and then the accuracy really dipped.
Yeah.
When he got pressure in his face, and that was also a lot of his worst decisions were when some of that pressure got there, and he couldn't do anything with it.
I think my last couple of notes on him in terms of struggles is I thought there were times where like he didn't really have a good feel for when a line drive was the right decision from a touch perspective versus a ball that needed to have a little less pace on it. There are some shorter
Yeah.
throws that he made catches a lot more difficult on his tight ends, especially, and
Yeah.
some of the receivers underneath. And that also resulted, like, there's times where he throws too hard and he's missing with high ball placement, where like you're making a guy extend his arms up above his head to try to make a catch instead of just hitting him in the chest with an easier throw. So that's another thing I saw on his tape that just like I these guys that are supposed to be like the system quarterbacks that have poor ball placement and accuracy are the guys that like I just can't like I can't get there with it. It was
Yeah.
That's what Stetson Bennett was. I was like, this doesn't work. Like this archetype just doesn't exist in the NFL. I think Beck kind of falls into that, which is why he
Yep.
scares me.
I was
I think Aguilar's like
that too.
even worse in that regard. So that part really scares me with him.
Yeah, and I thought generally the ball placement was it was bad. It was all over the place. Like he's sometimes way out in front on throws, he's sometimes way behind, he's high, he's low. I thought also like you mentioned he was consistently ripping throws that were short, and there were times where like guys were getting their head around it. It's like the timing is right, but the ball is getting there too quickly.
Yeah.
So they're like turning around to look for it, and then the ball is like immediately in their hands, and they weren't ready for it because it was coming in too hot. Or there were times where like he should have layered the throw over linebackers. He should have gotten it over defensive linemen, and he's not doing that because he's throwing too hard. He had a lot of balls tipped, not just at the line, but also by linebackers down the field because he wasn't layering over them. So I thought that like just some of the nuances of the game that you see legitimate prospects and legitimate NFL quarterbacks doing, he doesn't have some of those finer skills. And he's 25 years old. He's got a lot of experience. I don't think those things are going to develop in the NFL.
I think what you said there is a good call out on it. Like, if you do want to at least flip it a little bit to the positive, like, I do think there's times where you see like his mental timing is exactly where it needs to be,
Mm-hmm.
and like he's in good control of the offense. But then even then, like the throw sometimes is still where it slips up, and so it's like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter if you're perfectly on time with your mentals if you can't then execute the throw that needs to be made, right? So it
Yeah.
just some of those issues I think take away from some reps that would be more positive outside of that. Okay, anything else on him before we get into comps?
Um, no, I think that covers it.
Okay, I don't have clips for Aguilar today, so we're gonna move straight into comps. I I struggled with this one because I'm like, full disclosure, I think we should just say our grades first. We are definitely both UDFA. I'm assuming like
I have UDFA. Like
yeah,
I would rather bring in other free agents too. Like I'm
yeah.
kind of like out on Aguilar completely.
Yeah, which is why I struggled to get a comp because I'm like, like this is the first guy where I don't think I have a best case that plays in the NFL. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it exists, like even as a backup. So as my one comp that I had listed, I went with Seth Hennigan, who was the quarterback out of Memphis. He
Yeah.
similarly, I felt like had like prototypical size, but I didn't come away watching his tape feeling like there was anything specific that I could latch onto and say like, oh, this is the thing that makes you successful at the next level. There were a lot of things that were okay or like good for the college level, but for the NFL level, nothing that got me to the point where I'm like, okay, this is the trade I'm betting on that gets you to having any sort of success at the NFL. So that's the name I'll throw out for him. Like I said, like it's kind of hard to come up with comps for guys you don't think
Yeah.
are NFL players because you're comparing them to guys that are NFL players. But curious if you have any other names you want to throw out.
Yeah, mine is similar. Like I said, Sean Clifford, where it's like
Okay.
he coming out didn't have really very good tools.
Yeah. Somehow
He
got
may have
drafted. Like, yeah.
somehow gets drafted, didn't really do anything, flamed out basically immediately in the NFL. I kind of think that's the path for Aguilar. Like he was a fine quarterback. He was in a great system, which I think allowed him to have some success
Yeah.
this year. But I think that if you'd had him in a much tougher system or asked him to do a lot more, I think it would have looked a lot worse, especially on paper, like on the stat lines. So I think realistically, he is not going to last very long. Like he'll get some. He probably will get drafted just based on like some of the things that people are saying about him. Definitely a weaker class overall, but I think that like camp time rolls around and teams are going to figure out he doesn't have it.
I'll be a little stronger. I don't think he gets drafted.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see.
I've just heard too many people say that they like him as a day 3 prospect.
Yeah, you could be right.
Which is shocking. People that I generally agree with.
Yeah.
On their quarterback opinions like him as a day 3 prospect, and I'm like I didn't really see anything there that projects to the NFL. So.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't know. It'll be interesting to revisit after the draft for sure. But I do think somebody signs him as a UDFA. Like you said, there's just not that many good quarterbacks in this class. So the numbers game, like somebody's going to need a camp quarterback to bring in. So I do think he gets a shot there, and we'll see what happens from there. I do think like with Aguilar, obviously this is probably the most negative we've been on a player. Like overall for him, this is still a massive win to go from playing at App State the year before to like playing high-level SEC football at a solid level. This is still like much better than he ever would have imagined being like in the position of 3 or 4 years ago. But I do think this is the level where it's like, okay, the talent you see with other guys is certainly different from what you watch with Aguilar.
Yeah, and throwing in there too, like he does seem like a great guy, great teammate, really hard worker. So a really good guy that this could happen to, that he gets the opportunity to play at a big program like Tennessee, make his money in his 1 year there, and also still get the chance to go either in the draft or as a UDFA, go and get a little bit of a shot at the NFL and make a little bit more money there. Like definitely happy for that kind of person that they are the ones that get that shot. So
all right, that does it for our last tandem eval of the year. Like I said, we'll kind of have a recap show for us to go back, highlight like where maybe where we differ the most, maybe where we agree the most on some of our rankings, and give an overall view of where we've landed on this class. I do think like we kind of referenced there, this is generally, I think, a weaker class, and I would say so far we're in alignment with that. But I think contextualizing that a little more will be good as well. So look forward to doing that. Hopefully I'll have a couple more of these out before the draft, but no promises there. We'll see what happens. Jon, thanks for joining, and thanks to all of you for watching. Stay tuned for hopefully a few more episodes before the draft. We'll catch y'all soon.